live already. I wasn't ready. So what is shaking, y'all? It is the Golden Mike 155 with your boy, Marc Cordon. And here's the thing we're going to talk about today. You oftentimes think that divorce, post-divorce, that especially when you're in a really shitty marriage and it's time for it to happen, that you'd have more freedom. But oftentimes you have to rebuild and reconstruct that freedom in a totally different way. And I'm so stoked today because our guest is has been through it herself and also at the same time is a co-parenting and divorce coach. Last year we had her on the show and we like freestyled and danced and had a great time and we talked about some amazing things. Julie Beckerman, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, Mark. How are you doing? So
I'm
good to see
living the
you.
dream. I'm living the dream. I got a nice little haircut for you. I knew you were coming on
You
the
look
show.
wonderful. Yes.
Did you know you were coming on the show?
We just pop in and out.
Yeah, we pop in and out. So, for those of you who haven't met me, my name is Marc Cordon. I am the founder of Make Money Coaching and the Chief Disruptive Officer of the Joy Revolution. But more importantly, I get to ask Julie, does this remind you of last year? I get to ask on a regular basis, how happy are you? Or how happy are you today? And how much are you living in your meaning and purpose? And I know I asked you this last year, but it always changes. So, Beckerman, after this long weekend, how happy are you today? And how much are you living in your meaning and your purpose?
I'm so glad you asked because this was an amazing weekend, and coming off of this weekend to do this today, I am like in peak meaning and purpose and super happy. It was a great weekend. And then today I actually asked the question, like, what do I want to share with the world? And I have that opportunity. So thank you.
Whoa, whoa. Well, I
Whoa.
hope that what you want to share with the world is about co-parenting and divorce, because that's all the notes I've got today. But whatever you want to share, I'll roll with. Julie, I know that you're an avid dancer, so I will dance with you. Just
We
take the
will
lead
dance.
on the show and just tell me what to do. Now, here's the thing: for those of you who are watching and you're feeling like Julie, it's a Tuesday, but you're living in your meaning and purpose. You are not afraid to say that you are happy. You are above the status quo. Julie, beat that heart with me. Hit that heart button. I am awake now. I see you guys watching. I see you guys hitting that heart. I am going to turn on the watch party so we can get even more people up in here. Um, Love it. Now, here's the other thing, and especially probably with what we're going to talk about today, and especially with what we talked about last time with Julie and her story. Like, her story goes all the way back to brother and things that happened in when she was younger. It's an amazing, fascinating story to see where you are now. You
Thank
know
you.
that happiness is not about 24/7 shits and giggles, Skittles falling from the sky, Julie Beckerman riding on a Pegasus, throwing out gold coins to everybody, whatever that means. That's not the happiness that we're talking about. Life is about ups, downs, and all arounds. So you might be watching the show today saying, yo, I'm not feeling too happy today. That's cool. Or you might be saying to yourself, Beckerman, I've been in a relationship for 30 years and now all of a sudden I'm feeling out of it. Or I've been in corporate for 30 years, now all of a sudden I'm feeling out of it. I'm losing my passion and my meaning. That is cool too. That is part of your life's journey, your hero's journey. Know that you are living, your heart is beating, and that you are still alive. And hopefully, you'll be telling your story on some sort of golden mic one day. Give us a thumbs up and let Julie and I entertain you and let this wash over you. And something may stick and click. Give us a thumbs up, all right? Now, here's the last thing. Oh, thank you for the thumbs up, Julie. And thank you guys for the thumbs up. Here's the other thing. Here's the last thing. If you're feeling hopeful, yeah, Beckerman, I'm going to make you do it again. If you're feeling hopeful, there's another button down there. And the reason why I want you to or think about feeling hopeful is not this idea of wishing your life would be better, but having a vision, being hopeful about that vision, and moving towards it. If you feel hopeful in that way, that's as powerful as EQ and IQ in terms of success and happiness. Hit the wow face. Julie, no half ass in the wow face today. Do it with me. We're about to go into your story. What's your wow face, Julie? I love it. Now, Julie, you said what is that you want to tell the world something. By God, what is your story? Let's go.
So it was somebody posed a question like every morning when you wake up, spend 5 minutes, right? We all like kind of wake up and we grab for our phones. I don't do that, but people do that, and instead of that, the first question is like, what is it that I want to give to the world today? And how am I going to make that happen? And so, it was like I got to wake up today and think like I have an audience and you right with you to kind of like share, and people hopefully are going to be listening to this. And so what came to mind today was the thing I really wanted to kind of say is like freedom, right? Freedom is such an important thing. And yes, we're talking about co-parenting and we're talking about divorce, but connected to that, there's freedom. And I wanted to talk about freedom, and the thing that kept coming to my mind is like, no matter what. I don't know why, but that was the phrase that kept coming to me. It was like, no matter what. Doesn't matter if you're getting divorced. Doesn't matter if you're like not in that good place today or feeling it, or you're, a corporate situation or your relationship, or you're in that struggle. Like your vision is out there no matter what. And so what I wanted to talk today about was that story. And we'll kind of do a little bit of a recap. When I was here a year ago, it's just really interesting that this happened to come up again like a year later. So we are just very universe connected that way. I've been through a lot of things in the last decade, some of my own making, some things just kind of happen. And whatever came about in my life, right? We're talking death in the family. I've quit smoking. I've gained and lost 100 pounds, overcome an addiction of my own, been through a horrific divorce, horrific co-parenting, gone through a court situation that was, kind of in the financial range of $250,000. So we're talking like really significant things. And my MO is like, no matter what, I'm still going to live the life that I want. And yes, there were really difficult times. Yes, there were days where I did not wake up like, yeah, I'm pumping that heart and I'm feeling in that purpose. There were days where it was, really dark. But no matter what, no one was going to take away my right to have the life that I wanted to have, and the right to pursue it. Because one of the other things that I wanted to kind of mention, I don't know where it makes sense to mention it, but even as a coach, even as someone who helps people, I'm in that process too. So I don't have it all, but what I do have is the freedom to pursue it all. Mm. And that was sort of the key thing, is that, when we go through divorce, when we go through these really challenging times, it's this idea that like, I don't get to do this because I'm constantly fighting with someone. I'm constantly going through this and we don't have space for it. So freedom is also the freedom to have the opportunity to pursue what we want. And that was kind of what came to me today.
So Jamie, I mean, you have totally had these ups and downs and all arounds. And by the way, I'm not Jamie, Julie. Jamie is commenting right now. So Jamie, I'm hoping that you can hear me better. Now, Julie and Jamie and whoever else is watching, but specifically you, Julie, like you're talking about that feeling of freedom. Like, would this be the first time in your life that you would say that you have that feeling, or is it something that's come in and out of your life? Like, it's been like, I think that this was freedom at that time, but like now it's a different kind of freedom. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Like, for example, when
you might have to ask that question again.
Yeah, like for example, like you just said that you're feeling this freedom no matter what right now, and it sounds like it's two things. Like, number one, it's been as a result of all these experiences that you've gone through, right? Now that this is a value that's important, particularly right now, but also at the same time, like, have you ever felt that freedom before? Like, before all of the story, like when you were a kid, did you feel that kind of freedom, or is it something that you always were pursuing?
That's a really good question. I don't. So I think when we talk about our own purpose or we talk about our values, I think there was a part of me that really didn't understand that this was the value that I wasn't connected to.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm working with people, the people that my clients that are really successful with me are the people who where freedom is important for them too. And they're feeling that their circumstances are preventing them from sort of having those choices. So for me as a kid, it was like I was sort of trapped in a lot of those shoulds. Like what's right? What's the right thing to do? Right. And we hear that all the time. So let's talk about divorce and co-parenting. Like, right. So anyone who's been through divorce or been in a co-parenting situation, and it's like, do I have to tell my ex about this? Do I have to do this with my kids? Am I going to get in trouble for this? Or if I don't talk to them about this and they go to court, am I in trouble? Right. So anyone who's been through divorce kind of has that running dialogue all the time. Like, what's the right thing? I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to, right. And that was a constant dialogue as a kid. Go right, shoulds, the shoulds. What's the right thing? And the freedom from that was something that came about as in this process.
So talk a little bit about shaking the shoulds, because I think so many people like should it all the time, and I'm the first to admit that I'll walk through the day and I'll catch myself saying I should have done this or I should be doing this. And I've created this sort of weird expectation on like who Marc Cordon should be, right? Mm-hmm. And then the next thing I know, I'm not even sure what voice is saying what to me anymore, right? Like, how did you start shaking those shoulds?
This goes back, shaking the shoulds. I love that phrase. I'm totally, and it's dance-like.
Yeah, like exactly.
Shaking and shimmying the shoulds.
I told you, I can't stop thinking about dance right now.
Next dance thing. I started shaking the shoulds when literally somebody told me that the shoulds need to get shook. It was like when someone like kind of just said to me like the shoulds are not helping you, and it was like, okay. And it like started like, okay, the shoulds don't make sense. And for me, and everybody kind of connects because we hear it all the time.
Yeah.
Right. There's no such thing as right and wrong. Do your own thing. There is no shoulds. There's no judgment, right? Because shoulds and judgment are the same thing. If you should, that's a judgment about what you should do. So we hear that. No judgments. It's kind of buzzing. So we
Sounds
hear
like you went through a great coach program.
I went through, and I'm going to come back to that. So I don't want to lose this trail, but coaching is a process. I don't want to lose the trail.
Shoulds.
I want to come back to that. But the coaching thing too is also really important, that we also think that we're going to hand some money over to somebody. They're going to like give us this thing, like here's a token, put it in your pocket, and now your problem is solved. Right?
The magic pill.
The magic pill, the answer.
With no accountability.
These kinds of things when you're dealing with co-parenting, divorce, shaking the shoulds or shimmying the shoulds. But that also isn't how it works. And for me as well, each step in my process sort of amplified these skills and tools. And so I did have a great coaching system or tool or person, but I've had many. Yeah. And each one gave me more layers of understanding. Like you said, you were walking down the street and you find yourself doing it and you had great coaching progress, but we never reached that kind of like answer, it's fixed, it's done. We sort of like build our understanding of where the shoulds show up and where the judgments show up. And so each person that we come across in our life that gives us more information gives us more joy, happiness, freedom from it. And I think so for me, and I've had a number of different exposures to different people.
And I love how you're kind of framing this, because it may seem seemingly random that you went from talking about the shoulds and then all of a sudden we were talking about coaching, but also when you put the two themes together, what I heard you talking about, maybe from the mashup, the Hall and Oates coming together, right? So what I heard you talking about is this idea that we can, we can have all the people, the mentors, the coaches, whatever, like giving us the right advice, but if we're not ready to hear it, we're not going to hear it. Like it's just going to go in one ear and out. And so when your mentor went and said something about the shoulds, you almost were in a state that you were ready to hear it and ready for that challenge to say, okay, yeah, I'm ready to evolve. And that is going to help me move towards a place of, oh, it's called freedom. That's the name for it. Like,
Yes, for me.
yeah, and it sounds like you couldn't articulate it at an earlier age, but it's
Right.
something that like maybe deep inside was kind of dormant and it was kind of incubating. And then when someone was there to kind of, you were ready to hear it, you actually heard it. I
Yes.
don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was both, right? It was
Yeah.
like I needed it, and that was what was there for me. And it was there for me for that particular thing.
Uh huh.
And then when I was ready for the next, right, I found that same connection of the shoulds and the freedom in the next mentor, right? So sometimes, right, and so with co-parenting, divorce, parenting, these are really big, chunky things, right? And conflict, really big, chunky things. And it
Yes.
shows up in a lot. And we're raising our kids from birth till ever. Right? And so the way in which it shows up is going to, and so you may not have, right? So let's say there's someone on the call who's like, I really need help and I want to hire a coach. And here's Julie, and I'm going to pay her X amount of dollars. And when I'm done, I want this fixed. I don't want to, right? And so like, that's the answer, but it's, right, we're going to get answers, we're going to get progress, but life is not about like fixing and getting an answer. It's about finding our journey of answers. And so when like I did get shoulds, I did shake the shoulds, but I'm still shaking them just as you are.
Yeah.
Right. And so yes, in certain ways I shake them, but they still pop up.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Right. It's just right, they're a lot less than they used to be.
Yeah. It's really cool because like I mean, very much it's like it doesn't feel like this sometimes, but when you're in the mucky muck, it doesn't feel like this, but it's almost like a fun little game, right? Because like once you kind of conquer one should,
Yeah.
new shoulds, like 5 new shoulds pop up in a different domain of your life,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think last year at this time, I remember myself being like, oh my gosh, if I get to this stage in my coaching, all this will go away, right? And I got there and passed it, and other shoulds show up.
Other
and
things
right?
too, right?
So like
Exactly.
new devils, new levels, or new levels, new devils, right? And so
Yeah.
I love the fact that you have kind of put this thing out there that like we don't come to a finite stop. Like we continue to spiral out when it comes to our growth. And the second we stop to spiral out, we cease to exist. That's
Yeah.
not only an amazing part of life, but it can be kind of frustrating too. You know?
Yes, it's both. And so that's actually a great segue as to what I was kind of connecting the freedom and divorce and conflict and finding new freedom. And what I think some of the cycle of what can happen when we go through this process. So I think what happens, we go through divorce, and whether you chose it, it was chosen for you, you didn't want it, you did want it. We kind of, I think it's out there a little bit more now maybe than it used to be, that divorce is an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
It's a chance to start over. Maybe you didn't want it, but here you are, right? It's kind of like the lemonade out of lemons. Okay, this is our, but let's say you went through it and okay, here you are. You wanted it. Your marriage wasn't really what you wanted to. You were kind of not growing, so we're dying. And that's that concept that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So the opportunity for that growth. And now you have all this freedom to kind of rebuild yourself in some kind of a way, which is hard enough. Beautiful. But yes, like you're saying, also that frustration, a little scary, right? All of these areas of your life that you now have to go and like reface again. But there's freedom there.
Yeah.
But now the set of, or the population that I work with are people where not only are they going through that, but they're in a high conflict situation. So let's say you make the decision, you want what's best for yourself. You want to kind of explore your purpose, have more maybe than what your life has been so far. But now your ex is like full blown high conflict. And now you're going out there to explore a new life, but the conflict is like, you can't be the parent you want to be because every time you try to make a decision for your kid, it's a fight. You're trying to explore your life, but right, so we're talking conflict on a level that's like more than your average Jane Joe, right? Kind of
I mean, the
situation.
first thing that came to mind was almost this feeling of paralysis.
Paralysis, right? So you're almost like a victim of the conflict. So it was like you felt maybe stifled in your marriage, but the divorce kind of blew things up to a level where now this opportunity for freedom is like, wait a minute. And if, let's say, you didn't even want the divorce, your ex was the one who wanted the divorce, but now, wait, you didn't want to be married to me, and now you're going to fight me for everything? Are you kidding? Now I can't even be free? Like we're not even married, and I'm now still stuck in this.
Yeah.
So it's like, right? I mean, it's funny, but it's like this happens.
Yeah.
This happens.
No,
and we're talking, right? And there's elements, and so to try to just kind of give a picture of it, now you've got people who part of it's legal because a divorce agreement is legal. It's a legal contract, but the relationship stuff is not legal. It's just relationship crap. And you're in the law situation, but the legal system can't necessarily deal with the fact that you're co-parenting with someone who's just being kind of nasty or using your kids and all this stuff. And you're like a victim. You're like, where do I go? Who do I talk to help me with this nonsense? But there's no one to talk to about it, right? You can go to a therapist who helps you deal with things emotionally. But so the freedom is how to not be a victim. And when I was talking earlier about this, like, no matter what, is like, and I'm using the male and female, like woman to man, even though it can be in the reverse, is like, no way is my ex going to prevent me from having this freedom going forward into the world. Like, you're not going to use your conflict and your anger and these fights to prevent me from having my new life and rebuilding this life going forward. I was already stifled in this marriage in a way that I didn't really want. Now I'm moving forward, and now you're going to use these fights and this conflict to keep me from being the parent that I want, or from having the life that I want, or the happiness that no way. And that's kind of the freedom that I'm talking about. You don't get to stop me from having this kind of life that I want.
No.
Especially if you dumped me, right? Like, and that's the freedom I'm talking about. And how do we create that when someone's setting up these barriers just to kind of set them up, right? And that happens.
Yeah, and it sounds like part of that is a major shift in mindset, right? Like in just the way that you're seeing things, right? Because like, I mean, I can go into the theoreticals of things and say, like, we all have choices in life, right? But also when you've just been pounded and pounded and pounded, you don't feel like you've got choice anymore, and that you feel like a victim. Like, I can't do what I want with my kids because every single time I get like completely, like, something gets gaslit every single time I do something with my kids, right? And there's just no way to get through this. But now that you're a coach in this, from what I'm hearing is there is a way to get through this.
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
And yeah, there is.
And so is it mindset? Is one of the first things mindset?
It's more than that. So partly, right? So you can go into it and I can tell you, like, there is a way. There is a way. I'm telling you there is a way. And you're sitting there like, okay.
Exactly.
But if you don't know, like, there also is a practical approach of what that way looks like.
And that's beyond legal, beyond therapy.
Yes. It's not necessarily legal, right? So the practical approach is
not against legal, not
it's
illegal.
Not like, okay, so, and I'm going to give you this guy and I've got his number and it doesn't tell you where the body is. No, it's not like that. Although
of course someone from the New York area would say that.
No. So, but if you think about the equivalent, so it's something similar to skills around, like, let's say you have a kid in school and every day he gets his lunch money taken from the bully. And if he doesn't give the lunch money, he's getting tormented or beaten up, and it's not about physical violence, because this is actually not connected to physical violence. This is something more, but that bully grows up and might get married and be doing things similar, right? And bullying is not necessarily against the law. It just is shitty. Yeah. But those bullying tactics can, right, short of putting like a security guard next to that kid every day, that kid now is not eating or getting beaten up. Yeah. And you go to the principal, you put it through the process, and yeah, the kid gets suspended for 5 days and then comes back to school, and that kid's life is way worse. Yeah. Right? And so, right now, that's a very simplistic version, but these kinds of dynamics can occur. And what we want to do is, we don't want let's say it's the mom who's kind of subjected to this, to kind of feel like they're in a prison sentence that they have to carry out until their kids are 18, and then they can get out of prison. Like, oh, when my kids are 18, I won't have to deal with this anymore. Well, you're not in a prison. This is not a jail sentence you have to carry out. So yes, it's mindset first, to believe it's possible. And then second, it's actually tactical process and techniques. And one piece of it is your legal agreement that you have with your lawyer, right? Or whoever, your mediator, or just, you might not even have your agreement set. You might not be done with your divorce. But we know, like, you can have an agreement and your ex may or may not follow it. That happens. And what are you going to do? Go to court every single time? The courts may or may not enforce it. You can have, for example, your kid has a doctor's appointment next Thursday, and figuring that out and battling something like that out with your ex, if you have that level of conflict where every single thing is a battle, by the time you get to court, that doctor's appointment is done and gone. You can't. It's not realistic to think that you're going to be able to run to the court or run to somebody to get something resolved every time you have an issue. You just don't have the logistical time or the money to make that happen.
Right.
So what are those techniques? And that is about creating your own internal process for yourself on how to reach a resolution every time a conflict gets triggered. And a resolution can be reached in a number of ways, all the way from running it through the process, through the court, taking it to court, and that's the one end, all the way to, I'm going to let this one go. And it can be either, but you're choosing by understanding what the conflict is and what makes sense and what each step is in the process, and when it makes sense to go which way, right? And you don't want to go into a battle not knowing how many rounds are in each fight, because you can't prepare, right? You have to know what's involved, what each step is, and what the purpose of each step is, so that you know when to go into it and when to come out of it, and you're not circling and like, okay, why am I here, right? Because then you're just circling.
And that makes total sense, to not know exactly how much energy is going to be spent could result in you overexpending and becoming completely exhausted and burnt out for a
goal that isn't even worth it, right? Yeah. I want to get my ex to drive my kid to their football game, and what, are you going to go to court and spend $6,000 for that?
Yeah.
Right. And that's an extreme example, but no. That wouldn't make, you may if you have billions of dollars, but that's not going to make sense, right? Why are you going to do that? You can, right? Yeah. But those are the things in an extreme way you want to evaluate. You need your ROI. And you
exactly.
Need to know what you're getting into. And you also need to know when you go to a parent coordinator, when do you go to a mediator, when do you go to the therapist, and what is the purpose that they serve, so you know why you're going there. And if it's not effective, we move on.
But I really like that, because what you're talking about is almost setting up a system of coordination, right? Where instead of thinking that it's always going to be the same tool, right? Let's go to the courts. Let's drain my account, and let's just keep doing it. And now my account is drained, and now all of a sudden I need to work a third job, right? Versus having a multiple system of being like, okay, nope. Yes.
This will make
ROI,
sense.
Best, the least amount of investment, the most amount of impact, right? Yeah. And so I love the fact that you're putting that into the decisions that we make, because everyone uses it in business. By the way, I don't know if you remember, Julie, but there was someone named Jorge in Puerto Rico last year
Yes. Hi, Jorge.
that is coming back and saying hi to us. I haven't seen you in a while. You've been waiting for Julie for a while, Jorge? Well, Jorge, she's back. And he's giving you the thumbs up. Renee Rubin Arbitman, spot on. Go, Julie. So this is resonating with a whole bunch of people, and he's got sparklies around his head. I don't know if you know Renee, but Renee knows you, and he's lighting up right now.
Yes, Renee.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just see like sparkles around around the head. So let's talk about these internal processes a little bit more, because you
Yep.
went from, okay, the mindset that you're not a victim, you can empower yourself. And then number two, you can empower yourself by understanding there's more than one choice out there. If you keep doing the same thing, you're going to run into a wall at some point and you'll be drained. So understand that you have multiple ways, you have multiple people, you have a support system that's out there, but know how to make efficient decisions around that. How was this for you in terms of number one, your mindset shifting, and then number two, like implementing the tactics? Was that
Yeah.
an easy thing to do, or was that just
No, it's not easy.
okay?
But it was again, this goes, so the mindset was no matter what, right? And right, it's work.
So
Anything's
good.
work. And once again, it went into like, I don't care. There's no way I'm living my life. I did not go through all of that I went through to like go through that divorce, to have this life, to be like, okay, fine, I'm going to spend it fighting and arguing and like, no way. I went through 10 years of fighting and this divorce to have the life I wanted, and there was no way, right? So my mindset was like, I'm finding a way. Okay, so this was the way. And yes, in the beginning, you're basically creating like a process flow chart, right? I mean, and you're like, it's like, okay, so like the email comes in, okay, trigger point, like, and you file it away, and I'm highlighting and circling, okay, I don't need any of this. This is emotional, or deal with that later. And okay, and like you, and it takes work, and it takes like, it's called like intention implementation. And there's this concept, and I don't know how much time we have, but I actually really love this, and I get super excited. And this is why I coach this stuff.
If you're going to talk about mental contrast, if you're going to talk about mental contrast and implementation intention and Oettingen stuff,
I don't know what that is, but we may really have to have an offline.
That's implementation intent. Oettingen's the one who invented it. Yeah, we're going to stay here for a while. I love that stuff.
All right, I hope you guys got time, because there was this rowing team that was like losing constantly. And then all of a sudden in the 2000 Olympics, they start winning like crazy. And the reason they start winning is they put this implementation intention idea in place. And this rowing team's implementation concept was, will it make the boat go faster? And what that means is their goal was every decision they make is always around the question, will it make the boat go faster? So that the idea is, do we go to the party tonight? Will it make the boat go faster? No, they don't go. Should I eat that? Will it make the boat go faster? No. Do we wear those uniforms? Does it make the boat, right? So you get the idea. But more than that, right? So we find our goal, and then it's coming up with the process around that goal and any obstacles that get possibly in the way, and having a plan for those obstacles. Now, how does this relate back to divorce and co-parenting and high conflict co-parenting? You have a goal, and when we're talking about co-parenting, it's something around your kids, right? You're co-parenting, you're dealing with your ex because it's about your children, or you don't deal with your ex. We're going to simplify. So when I need to interact with my ex because, let's say you want to sign your kids up for summer camp. Yeah. The goal is, let's get the kids into summer camp. Potential conflict. The process is preparing for all of the possible obstacles that are getting in the way of signing your kids up for summer camp. Money, transportation, which camp, time frames, this one goes here, right? So what are all those obstacles, and what is your response to those obstacles. Now, yes, this is a lot of work. That is why hiring a coach is helpful, because it takes a lot of planning. But once these processes are in place, and you don't make a process for camp, and you make a process for the conflict style. And once that process is in place, the rest of your life is easier. I guarantee it. So when a conflict comes up now, and I'm not going to lie, conflict comes up for me. I do have it. I'm not telling you me and my ex are best friends. We are not. We do have issues, and when issues come up, but I will tell you, I do not worry about I don't have any doubts about the fact that I know how to deal with that conflict and that my objective will be reached. Ever. It will get dealt with. Is it annoying? Yes. Do I want to? No. It's not scary. It's not unfreeing. It doesn't prevent me from pursuing my life. And that is why the work is worth it.
I absolutely love it. I'm putting a Q in this because I'm giving you the replay just because the amount of money I've spent learning mental contrasting and implementation intention, you have explained so much more clearly than so many other people. I absolutely love it. And also, what I love about this idea, for those of you who haven't heard of implementation or mental contrasting, is that if you don't plan for the ifs, right? If this happens, that's the mental contrast. Like, if this conflict happens, if you don't plan for it, then suddenly you become reactionary to it. And
Yeah.
you're at the mercy of the inputs of life, and you can't focus on the outputs. You have no freedom and control. Like, it's coming all together right now, Julie. You're a genius. Like, you don't have any freedom because you're controlled by the inputs. If you focus on the outputs through mental contrasting and implementation intent, if if conflict happens, then I know to focus just on the output of kids to summer camp. That
It's
is why I'm having this conversation, not to engage in the conflict. And in
does
many
it make the
ways,
progress faster? Yes.
and in many, let's go to the boat row faster piece. In
Yes.
many ways, if you focus on the boat rowing faster, you're not getting controlled by anyone who tries to gaslight or try to deviate or try to start some bullshit conflict about the boat going faster, right? So you feel free to apply that to other things like summer camp or anything like that, because I'm not accusing anyone of anything except for maybe a metaphor of the boat, right? Um, I don't know if you know Karina Ibar Jacobs,
I do. I do know. Hi, Karina.
but
Yes.
she's tuning in right now and she's just saying, go Julie Beckerman. Very insightful and practical tools. Julie, the amount of, like, I've got goosebumps right now with the amount of growth that, or the amount of insight that you've been adding. Last year's, I didn't think that we could top last year's episode, but like, I've got like butterflies right now because like it is so cool in terms of how you can come from this state of actually feeling like a victim and stifled, and then realizing that conflict is just inevitable. And how can I plan with the conflict? How can I move with this now? Like, and almost like you're like, yeah, emotions are going to be a part of it, but how do I minimize those emotions? We'll understand that these inputs might happen in which this person knows me so well that they know that if they push this certain input that it might result in me becoming reactionary. But now all of a sudden you're really proactive about this. That's something that you can not only use um, uh, in co-parenting, but you can use absolutely in life.
Every,
Absolutely in life.
yes.
I love it.
I love
Julie
it.
Beckerman is our new positive psychology coach and probably may take over the Golden Mike Live if we keep asking her
I'm your
questions. So
successor.
let's keep asking her questions so I can take a vacation from this damn show every once in a while. So it sounds like at first this is a bunch of tools. It may feel overwhelming, but just like using a golf club over and over again, it sounds like the more you use the tools, the more effective you become at it, and the faster you get to the outcomes you want. Is
Yeah.
that what I'm hearing?
Of course.
Yeah.
So let's go to the dance metaphor, right?
Let's
You
go
learn
there.
the steps, right? Anyone who dances, anyone who plays a sport, this is muscle memory, right? You practice the steps and you fumble a little, right? You let out a curse word, you engage with your ex in an email, and you're like, ah, you freaking douchebag, right? And then, you realize like after a half hour of back and forth in a message, and you come back and you're like, okay, well, there's a half hour I'm not getting back. And what do I have to show for it? And, you next time you don't do it as often, right? So just like anything, the more you use it, the better your brain gets at making those connections. And the more you kind of just kind of flows. The other piece of it that just kind of came to mind when we talk about freedom is when you go through a divorce, you're separating. Freedom is also space. You have more free space. And we're not comfortable with space, right? But when you're rebuilding, you're finding new things to fill in that space. And one of the main questions as a coach we ask this too is if we weren't doing that, we weren't fighting with our ex, we weren't engaging in that conflict, what would we be doing otherwise? As we move further and further away from the point of separation, we're putting other things. We have more, right? We don't have time to spend 2 hours fighting with our ex over who's picking up Junior at the baseball game. We just don't. So it's kind of like we're going to get better at this because we just don't have time to not be good at it.
Yeah.
I can't sit there and fight with my ex on email for 4 hours, and who has time? So, yes, we get better at it. We just do, and we get smarter, and we learn how to which process worked better for this. The other piece of it that's really kind of tying back to the shoulds in the beginning is which process we use for which things. If I could lay it out and just draw a diagram and say if this, then use this one. If this, then use this one. I would do that. And I would just photocopy it and put it on Instagram. And then you guys can all download it and use it. The reason it's not that easy is because everybody's values are different. And what you're going to go to court to fight for your kid is different than what I would, because my values and priorities are just different and what I need for my kid, right? So summer camp may not be as big of a priority for me because of my schedule and your schedule and what you need. So the rights, the wrongs, the shoulds, that's why those things really don't exist, but we have to be able to speak to them. And one of the other things that I do that's really useful for people is when they go into court and they've been living their life according to their beliefs and their values, which are all valid, and then the court asks you well, what schedule do you want? What do you need financially? What's your parenting plan? And you have to speak to it. And I don't know, it's just kind of what I do because that's the kind of parent that I am, because that's what I believe. You have to make lifelong decisions for the next phase of your life now. And it's really hard sometimes to articulate kind of very coherently what decisions you're making for your future. I'm not sure if I said that right, but what kind of things are really going to be important for you for the next phase of your life in a really fast manner for the divorce process? So working with a coach like me to kind of really get clear on why the parenting plan you're coming up with makes sense, why the schedule you want makes sense, why the location you're moving to makes sense for you, right? If you've been a stay-at-home mom, now you got to get a job and figure out your finances. And that's a lot to come up with and figure out for your next future when you are under all this emotional situation, all these things. So that's another piece.
It can be completely overwhelming.
Yeah, and there's really no one in the divorce world that, you have therapists, but they're not necessarily familiar with the divorce process and all the phases of it. An attorney's not really in the position, they're fighting for your legal rights, they're not really working with you on your goals. Right? Parent coordinator is really helping you work with your ex directly. So a coach is someone who can help you identify what you may want and your values as a newly free, independent person, and for your kids in that time frame as things are coming up, and you have to make those decisions and articulate them and stand behind them in a confident way.
Absolutely.
Especially if you have a very high conflict ex or someone who you have a lot of conflict with, who's really trying to bowl you over, and you're like, wait a minute, right?
Yep.
If you're not, amicable with your ex. So
And like your dog totally loves what you're saying right now.
like,
I feel it, doggy. Doggy is giving a heart to us right now. Clarity is huge in any. You just
I'm
gave the
so
dog
sorry.
the death
It's like
stare.
fucking back.
Well, oh, the death stare to the dog. Oh, let me see if I can get the dog to bark. Oh.
She knows I'm serious, right?
Um, so clarity is a huge part of anything, and I love the fact that you also talk about like, the idea that look, this is part of my story with implementation intent, but also at the same time, like I'm not gonna go and put it as a fucking lead magnet how to do this plan of action because, it's just like in companies. If you have a rigid, rigid plan, then the first shot of entropy, the first shot of change that comes along, the plan crumbles because the plan is not adaptive for it. And I love the fact that you're like, look, these are tools. These aren't commandments and prescriptions that I'm giving you.
Well
They're
said, yeah.
tools that you can use, but you have to still hold yourself accountable and understand the clarity that you have or the lack thereof when it comes to the decision making. Like I'm sitting there and I'm like, wow, to be in front of a judge and the judge say, what is it that you need? And if you don't think through that, that is a lot of pressure to articulate that in the moment, and then I could see not you, but a person going into a lot of shoulds afterwards. I should have said this. I should have said that. When it could have been a process that was a tool, like they could have used a clarity tool or had a coach to help them walk through that very, very quickly. Really amazing. Renee Rubin Arbitman is back again. So helpful, Julie. Like, you're dropping this knowledge on us that I absolutely love here. Now the dog started barking and threw me off, but I wanted to throw this out there. What you're talking about when it comes to freedom is something that we talk about a lot in the Joy Revolution, and I love it because this idea that, for example, just because you're not angry, you're not sad, it doesn't mean that you're happy. It doesn't infer that you're happy. And just because you're not a victim anymore doesn't mean that you're free. And so in many ways, I see what you're talking about. Like the legal systems, therapists can get you out of the -1 space to just back to status quo. But if you really want to go to infinity with the idea of freedom, there's another step that you have to take. So just because you're feeling a relief for a little bit doesn't necessarily feel like you're free. You're feeling a relief that you're not a victim anymore. But that doesn't imply that you're experiencing freedom. And so I really want to, man, dog, why don't you bark when I say something deep? So, but like, I really am picking up what you're throwing down, Julie, because you're completely right. This idea of going from feeling like a victim to feeling free is not just not a victim anymore, and now I'm free. That's illogical. It's actually more than one step.
Yeah.
And because it's more than one step, it can get complicated. It can get, the pressure can get to you, and to really have somebody who supports you and is completely an essential part of your thriving. It makes complete and total sense to me. Guess what? We just went into another positive psychology concept, flow, sister. 56 minutes of straight talking. I want you back on the show if that's cool. And
I would love
hopefully,
to.
hopefully it's more. Yep, they're hitting the thumbs up right now. They want you back too. Julie Beckerman, I've got all your stuff down here. Your Insta at Inspire to Grow. You're not gonna get a lead generator on how to do this all, but you're probably gonna get a little bit of some tools on how to utilize it. Aspire to Grow. Aspire to Grow growth.com. I screwed the whole thing up. Let me say it again. Aspire to Growth. That is the Instagram handle, and aspiretogrowth.com. What are we going to get when we go to your site?
You will, my site, you'll get some blogs. So the website, I have really not put a lot of investment in a while. So
It's
the
all that
website,
space
you
you
can,
got.
I was like, oh, sorry. And you'll get a nice picture of me, maybe, and you can email me there. But really, my Instagram and my Facebook is, you can contact me. I post there all the time. I put down all this wisdom and every thought that comes into my head there. You'll see me dancing, if
Yes.
that interests you at all. But contact me, reach out. If you mention that you know Marc, we'll do a free session, and
So cool.
and we
Very
can
cool.
we can actually work through. If you are going through something, you're in the middle of a conflict, mention this session. I will work through a conflict with you, and then. My dog likes me, obviously.
I can
Not
tell.
right. My dog's like, yes, no conflict. So, um,
Have you done an implementation intent when your dog barks at you during a podcast?
my God, maybe have to look back on that one. She, she just likes to be involved. I don't know. She's like,
We're gonna have to do a show just with your dog.
She's got wisdom.
Yeah.
She does. Very wise dog. So that's, yeah. So Instagram, Facebook, and contact me and mention the show, and I will do we'll do a conflict resolution session.
Wow, time is one of the coolest things that somebody can give, and I appreciate not only the time that you're giving the people who watch the show, but also the time you've given to all of us who've been live with you. I have definitely become a better person. I mean, my notes are wild right now that I've taken on this. Aspire to growth. Click on it now. It's all in the show notes, and also add Julie if you know that she can be an asset or just someone you want to watch dancing. She's a really good dancer. So it's really fun to watch you, and it's really fun to see the growth and how you're standing in your power right now. That's all I can say. It's just I'm overwhelmed by because like the last time we talked, you were already a powerful person, but like you're up leveling in front of all of us. And so I'm gonna actually replay last year's show just to get you another idea of just how many angles there are to Julie's life. It's amazing. Julie, you know what's coming up now. I want you to come up back on the show, but a golden mic is coming from your ceiling. Don't let that dog snatch that golden mic. It's expensive. And it's coming to rest in front of you. I want you to imagine that this golden mic broadcasts to the entire world, and it translates into every language. So when I hit the button, you're going to be live, and the world is listening to the message that it needs to hear from you. Julie Beckerman, you're on the golden mic live.
So I didn't think about this one this time. So I wanted to share with everyone that whatever it is that you want for yourself, you can have it. There is a way. And if you don't know the way, you create the way. And if you can't figure out how to create the way, find someone who's doing it and work with them to get the way for yourself. Because I will tell you again, what I woke up thinking this morning is no matter what. And I don't know why, but no matter what, we're going to have the life we want. And if we don't have it today, we're working towards it. And the people I want to work with, the people I want to be around are working towards whatever it is that makes them happy and feel good, and even feel good when they don't feel good. So keep going for it. Nobody gets to tell you the way you live your life. Nobody gets to tell you how you feel. Nobody gets to tell you when you're fighting, when you're not fighting, when you're unhappy. So you just keep dancing.
Julie Beckerman, I want you to take that golden mic. It's your second go round with this golden mic. You're officially a veteran now. We're gonna get you like a jacket now because you're part of the members club. I want you to hold that.
I want that jacket.
And we're gonna make you dance with that jacket. I want you to hold that golden mic up because someone's gonna take it tomorrow. But I want you to feel the weight for a second because there was a lot of gravity in what you did, and I want you to throw that golden mic down and smash it because you just dropped that golden mic. Step on it, make that dog bark.
Guy, come here.
Beckerman, we're gonna have you on again. For those of you who missed it, Aspire to Growth, Instagram, and Julie, just click her name right now and add her to Facebook and follow her. I cannot wait to see what you show up as next. It's amazing. It's amazing to see your growth, and I'm moved. I'm moved to have known you and to have spent time with you in Miami almost a year or over a year ago, and to
Right.
see like just how everyone's developing right now. So here's the final thing: for those of you who are feeling happy, for those of you who are feeling meaning and purpose, like Julie, sometimes like myself,
Mhm.
our question to you is this: what is your responsibility to change history for the better? Golden Mike 155 is over. Say goodbye, Julie, and we will see you very soon. Take care. Stick around, Jewel. Oh my gosh, dude. Oh my